This happened a few weeks ago. I'm Ethan, 32, and I took a live-in caretaker job at a mansion. I needed the money after being laid off. The place was remote, surrounded by thick trees. It looked eerie but old, like it had stories to tell. I thought it would calm me down. The first night felt quiet. I went to bed early, tired from moving my stuff in. The floors creaked under my weight. I figured it was just the old building. I didn't think much of it. But by the second night, things changed. I woke up to a noise. It wasn't clear. Maybe the house was settling? I got up and walked down the dark hall. I had locked the study door earlier, but now it was open. My heart started racing. I pushed the door and stepped inside. The air felt thick as if someone was watching me. The portraits hung on the walls looked weird. I couldn't tell why, but it felt like they were staring at me. I left quickly. Odd things started happening after that. Doors I locked were open. Rooms looked unfamiliar. Books changed. One night, I thought I heard soft music, but I couldn't find the source. I felt exhausted but had to work. I couldn't risk losing my job over this, so I tried to convince myself it was just stress. But it kept happening. Every night there was something new. I felt like I was losing my mind. One evening I checked the library. Felt different. The furniture looked strange. I couldn't figure out what was wrong. I just knew it was off. Dread began creeping into my thoughts. I wanted to call a friend to talk about it, but the phone just went dead. My pulse quickened. I stood in the room, panic flooding me. I should have left the mansion, but I felt trapped. Questions swirled in my head. Was it me going nuts? Why was everything changing? Then one night I heard the music again. It was louder now. I followed it, my heart racing. I thought I'd find answers. Instead, I ended up in front of the study door again. This time it was shut. The music was louder, almost overwhelming. I reached for the doorknob. Just as I was about to turn it, I heard a whisper. "Why are you still here?" I spun around. There was nobody. My heart raced even more. I stood there, frozen, fear washing over me. Was someone playing tricks? Or was it all in my head? I didn't know what to do. Feeling like the walls were closing in, I heard the music again. It filled the air. I thought about leaving, but I was too scared to step away. I turned back to the door, wanting to know what was behind it. I just wanted answers. But all I saw was darkness. I was trapped, with the music echoing in my ears. I felt it sink deep into my bones. The music surged around me, a haunting melody that felt both inviting and menacing. I stepped closer to the study door, drawn in despite the chill prickling my skin. What was behind that door? I had to know. I grasped the doorknob, turning it slowly. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit room. The air inside was stale, like it hadn't been breathed in for years. My heart thudded in my chest. I stepped inside, the music now wrapping around me, filling every corner. The study looked different than I remembered. Books were strewn across the floor, their covers torn and pages fluttering as if caught in an unseen wind. I shivered. I approached the desk. Papers were scattered, but halfway across the room, something caught my eye, a book standing upright, as if someone had just placed it there. I crossed over and picked it up. The title read, "Whispers of the Past." An unsettling feeling washed over me. I opened it. The first page was blank, but the second held a name, Eliza Hawthorne. I felt a chill at the mention. I had seen that name somewhere before, maybe in one of the portraits. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the back of the room. I jumped, nearly dropping the book. I turned to see a shadow flitting past the bookcase. Panic surged. "Hello?" I called, my voice wavering. Silence answered. I felt like a scared child. I stepped back, ready to leave, when I heard the whisper again. "You shouldn't be here." It was softer this time, almost sad. I froze, bracing myself for whatever was about to happen. "Who are you?" I shouted. My heartbeat thundered. There was no response. The music grew louder, drowning out my thoughts. I felt dizzy, the shadows around me twisting. Then I noticed something on the floor, a small mirror. It looked antique, the glass cloudy. Against my better judgment, I knelt to inspect it. As I peered in, a figure emerged behind me in the reflection. I whipped around, but no one was there. I rolled the mirror in my hands, heart racing. The figure was gone, but in its place, the room felt colder. I needed to get out. I stood and hurried toward the door, but it slammed shut. A wave of panic hit me. "Let me out!" I yelled, banging on the door. The music faltered and then stopped. The house fell silent. I could feel dread pooling in my stomach. I grasped the doorknob again, but it wouldn't budge. I turned back to the room, desperate for an escape but trapped inside. That's when I saw it. The book I had picked up was now open, pages flipping on their own. I leaned closer, horrified. It was filling with text. Words inked themselves onto the pages. My name appeared, then a date. Ethan, June 14th. I staggered back. What did it mean? I felt a presence creeping in, heavy and suffocating. I was no longer sure if my own senses were playing tricks. I had discovered something I never meant to, and it only made me want to leave more. But as I fumbled for the door again, a cold hand brushed against my neck. I screamed. I spun around, heart racing, but found no one behind me. The room felt suffocating, the shadows creeping closer, as if they were alive. I ran for the door again, hammering on it with both fists. "Let me out, please," I shouted, but there was nothing. The whispers returned, chilling my spine. "You cannot leave," they echoed. My breath was shallow, panic clawing at my throat. I felt the walls closing in, the air growing heavy and thick. I became desperate, searching for anything, an escape route, a hidden way out. My eyes landed back on the open book still spinning its pages. Against my better judgment, I stepped back to it, wanting answers more than I craved escape. The ink flowed across the pages, sentences forming. "Ethan will join us." My stomach twisted. Who were they? The words blurred, almost alive and shifting. I couldn't focus, my mind racing. Then I heard a soft tapping from the far corner of the room. My heart skipped a beat. Slowly, I turned toward the sound. It came from an old, dusty window, shrouded in thick curtains. I crept closer, cautiously pulling back the fabric. Outside, the moonlight cast an ethereal glow over the landscape, but that wasn't what caught my attention. In the garden, a figure stood still, dressed in a long, flowing gown exactly like the one in the portrait of Eliza Hawthorne. I instinctively blinked, hoping to make sense of what I was seeing. My breath caught again. She was staring directly at me. No, not just staring, imploring. I could feel her gaze burning into my soul. I felt a strange pull, an undeniable urge to step outside, to know if she was real. Was she the presence I felt in the room? But another noise broke my concentration, a scraping sound behind me. I whirled around just in time to see the book slam shut, a finality echoing through the room. A shiver racked my body as I faced the door. The weight of the moment pressed down on me. I hesitated, fear clashing with curiosity. Looking back at the window, Eliza was still there, waiting, her expression unreadable. I couldn't stay anymore. With a sudden burst of adrenaline, I turned back to the door once more, willing it to open. And just when I thought it all was lost, the doorknob clicked. I flung the door open, stepping out into the dim hallway. But as I took a breath of relief, I heard it, the faintest whisper again. "Ethan, come back." I froze, the chill of her voice wrapping around me like a vice. I turned back to the room, heart pounding, my mind racing with questions that only deepened the darkness around me. Eliza was not the only mystery in this house. I was in deeper than I ever intended, and whatever I discovered next could change everything. The hallway felt endless, shadows licking at my heels as I moved carefully away from the room. My hands trembled as I touched the cool wall, trying to ground myself. The mansion seemed alive, breathing with a pulse I couldn't understand. I forced myself to walk as quietly as possible, peering into rooms that were mostly shrouded in darkness. I found a narrow staircase to my left, leading down. The whispers seemed to fade a bit with each step, and with it, a sliver of hope returned. Maybe I could find a way out of this house. I steadied myself and descended, the wood creaking beneath my weight. At the bottom, the air grew colder. I stepped into another dimly lit hallway lined with photographs. I couldn't help but pause, scrutinizing the faces gazing out at me from the frames. Each one felt distant yet familiar. The same haunting eyes, the same line of despair etched into their features. It was unsettling. As I moved along the corridor, I noticed an open door at the end. A faint flicker of light danced from inside. My instincts screamed for me to turn back, but curiosity pushed me forward. I approached the door and glanced inside. A candle flickered on a worn table in the center, casting eerie shadows that danced across the walls. And there, on the floor, lay an array of objects: an ancient clock, a dusty mirror, and what looked like old letters. Everything felt out of place, yet there was an undeniable connection. My heart raced with every detail I took in. That S when I saw it. A familiar scarlet ribbon laying neatly atop a pile of letters. I had seen that ribbon before. Eliza had worn it in her portrait, tied in her hair. I felt a chill wash over me, a wave of anxiety swelling as I grabbed the ribbon. Whatever this meant, it couldn't be coincidental. Suddenly, I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps behind me. My pulse quickened, panic overtaking me. I turned abruptly, ready to confront whatever was there, but the hallway lay empty. I felt a knot of dread twist in my stomach. It was eerily silent, as if the house was holding its breath. Then I caught just a glimpse of movement at the corner of my eye. I turned quickly but saw nothing, only the closed doors surrounding me. The air felt charged, like when a storm was about to break. A chill spread across my arms, and the whispers returned, echoing more vividly than before. "Ethan, be careful." The voice was low, almost a warning. I didn't want to wait around to uncover what was happening. With the ribbon clutched tightly in my hand, I slipped out of the room and back into the hallway. I needed answers now. But as I made my way back toward the stairs, the lights flickered, plunging me into darkness. I gulped, every instinct screaming to run. And just then, a scream echoed through the mansion, my own voice, not my own. It reverberated off the walls and drew closer. I needed to find Eliza, and fast, before whatever haunted this house enveloped me too. The darkness wrapped around me like a thick blanket. I could barely see, my heart racing in the silence. Instinctively, I reached for the banister, feeling its splintered surface beneath my fingers. Every nerve in my body screamed to flee, but I couldn't let fear dictate my decisions. I took a deep breath and ventured forward, one slow step at a time. The flickering lights seemed to tease me, growing stronger then dimmer again, as if the mansion itself was alive, playing tricks on my mind. In this silence, the whispers returned again, a soft, haunting repetition of my name. Ethan. I forced myself to move. The stairway felt impossibly long, and I dared not look back. As I reached the bottom, an unusual sound caught my attention. A soft whimper, almost like a plea, drifted down the hallway from an unfurnished room. I felt drawn to it, pulled like a moth to a flame. With each step, I tried to gather my wits. What if it was Eliza? What if it wasn't? But uncertainty had become my constant companion. I couldn't ignore that voice, that desperate call. I stepped closer to the room where the sound originated, my breath hitching in my throat. The door creaked loudly as I nudged it open. Inside, the flickering light revealed a small figure huddled in the corner. My heart sank as I recognized Eliza. Her hair fell over her face, and her clothes looked tattered, as if she had been trapped here for a long time. Relief surged through me, but just as quickly it was replaced by confusion. This wasn't the vibrant Eliza from the portrait. This was someone lost. "Eliza!" I called, but my voice broke the silence, echoing ominously. She looked up, her expression a mix of fear and recognition. "You shouldn't have come here," she whispered, her voice shaky. "What happened to you?" I pushed onward, stepping closer to her. "We need to get out of this place." She hesitated, her gaze darting down the hallway, as the whispers grew louder and more frantic. "They won't let us go. They don't want us to leave," she said, trembling. "Who?" I pressed, feeling the weight of dread settle in my bones. Those who were here before, they're still here, trapped like me. I tried to warn you. A shiver ran through her, and I could see the fear etched into her features. Before I could respond, the lights flickered violently and plunged us into darkness again. An overwhelming sense of dread washed over me, and I felt the temperature drop sharply. I turned to find Eliza's hand gripping mine, her fingers cold and pale. "We have to go now," she urged, pulling me toward the door. But before we could move, I heard a low, guttural growl echoing through the halls, the sound seeming to vibrate off the very walls of the mansion. Panicked, I glanced back at Eliza, and in that moment, I saw something that froze my blood. Behind her, a shadow loomed, darker than the darkness itself, stretching out towards us, hungry and relentless. "Get back," I shouted, adrenaline surging, but Eliza's grip tightened, her eyes wide with terror. "It's too late." My pulse pounded in my ears, drowning out the terror around us. I realized then this wasn't just a haunted house. It was a cage, and we were trapped within it. I pulled Eliza closer, determined to protect her. But the shadow advanced, impossibly fast, swallowing the muted light of the room. Its edges twisted and curled, threatening to envelop us completely. I could feel a visceral pull, an urge to flee despite the icy grip of her hand on mine. "Don't look away," she said, her voice rising above the growls. "Whatever you do, don't turn your back." "Why? What does it want?" I shouted back, my voice trembling. She didn't answer, her gaze fixed on the monstrous shadow. I stole a quick glance at the doorway, my chance to escape, but it felt like moving through molasses. Time stretched, and my heart raced even faster. Then, the growling ceased, and the room fell into an unsettling silence. It was as if the house was holding its breath. The shadow hung in the air, pulsing, shifting like a living entity. "What do we do?" I asked, trying to steady my voice. "Eliza," the voice came from the shadow, a mockery of her own. "Eliza, come home." I shivered. It wasn't just a threat. It sounded possessive, familiar. It knew her. "Eliza, we can't let it get to you," I said, pulling her away. "We need to move now." But she hesitated, her expression torn. "It's not just a shadow. It's connected to me, to everyone trapped here. It feeds on fear and despair." And in that moment I finally understood. This wasn't merely a haunting. This was a manifestation of her anguish. A twisted reflection of the souls who had vanished before, now bound to the darkness. Before I could protest further, the shadow lunged. I felt its cold rush against my skin, an energy that threatened to pull me into the void. With instinct overriding fear, I yanked Eliza away just as the shape rushed past us. We stumbled backward, crashing into a stack of old furniture. "Get up," I urged, adrenaline surging through me. I could almost taste the dread. The growl roared back to life, echoing like thunder, shaking the walls around us. "Eliza, we have to keep moving," I shouted, forcing her to her feet. I could feel the urgency settling into my bones. We dashed down the hallway, the flickering lights barely illuminating our path as the growl morphed into furious howls behind us. What were those sounds? Was it the remnants of lost souls trying to escape? Couldn't think. I just had to run. As we rounded a corner, a door swung open before us, leading to a dimly lit study. I pulled Eliza inside, shutting the door with a heavy thud. Breathing hard, I leaned against it, trying to catch my breath. "What now?" she asked, her voice shaking that I scanned the room, littered with old tomes and dust-covered antiques. "Find something we can use," I urged, looking for any clue, any lifeline. "There has to be something here." When my eye caught a glint among the shadows, a silver locket lying half-buried under some papers. I reached down, my fingers brushing the cool metal. It felt oddly warm, alive in my grip. The moment I lifted it out, a chill filled the room, and the lights dimmed to near darkness. I turned to Eliza, the fear etched on her face matching my own. "This isn't just a locket," she whispered, eyes wide. "It's a key if we can unravel its secrets. It might lead us to the truth. Before I could respond, the door jolted against my back. The shadow had found us again. "Eliza!" I shouted, and the locket vibrated in my hand, pulsating with urgency. I realized then it was either face the darkness or take a chance on the locket. And with every second that passed, the shadow drew closer. The door rattled violently, splintering the air with its ferocity. A primal instinct to flee kicked in, but something about the locket pulled me to stay. "Eliza, the locket!" I yelled, holding it up in front of her. "We have to find a way to use it." "How?" she asked, her voice thick with panic. I took a deep breath, trying to ground myself. "Maybe we can unlock something it connects to." I glanced around the dusty study, trying to find anything that matched the locket's strange aura as I searched frantically. I felt the presence of the shadow breathing down my neck, overwhelming in its bitterness. With every tremor of the air, I felt its desperation and hunger. If I didn't act now, we would become more than just victims. We would be part of its feast. "Look," Eliza pointed at an old wooden desk in the corner. I rushed to it, digging through ancient papers. My heart sank, seeing nothing but dust and forgotten memories. Frustrated, I slammed my hand down on the surface, and the desk creaked ominously. Then, something shifted beneath the desk. I quickly knelt down and discovered a small keyhole carved into the wood, hidden beneath layers of grime. "This could be it," I exclaimed, heart racing as I carefully brought the locket closer. I could feel the air crackling with energy. I inserted the locket into the keyhole, praying with every ounce of belief that it would work. Clicked loudly, echoing against the walls. But nothing happened. The locket felt cold against my palm, and in that moment, dread twisted my stomach. Then I heard it. A low growl, deeper this time, vibrating through my bones. The shadow was not just pursuing us. It was preparing to strike. "Eliza! Quick! Help me!" I pleaded, looking back at her. She knelt beside me, her face pale but determined. "On three," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "1, 2, 3. We pushed down on the locket together. The moment we did, a blinding light shot through the keyhole, engulfing the entire room. It was unbearable, but I couldn't look away. The light pulsed like a heartbeat, and the shadow shrieked, a sound that felt like it could tear the world apart. Then, silence. The light flickered out, and we were left in darkness once again. But now something felt different. The air was charged not just with fear, but with possibility. I looked at the desk, and to my astonishment, a faint outline of a door appeared, shimmering just beyond my reach. "Eliza, it's a door," I barely managed to say, feeling a mix of hope and confusion rise within me. "But what is on the other side?" Before she could reply, the shadow roared back to life, more furious than before. We had only moments. The door was our only chance. "Let us go," I shouted, gripping Eliza's hand tightly as we rushed toward the newfound entrance. But as we approached, I felt a sudden cold grip my heart. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever lay beyond was not just an escape, it was also a confrontation with everything we had been running from. But I had no choice now. Not if I wanted to save Eliza, if I wanted to save myself. Just as we reached the door, a shadowy tendril shot out, wrapping around my ankle, dragging me back. I was pulled away from the threshold. "No!" I screamed, while Eliza reached for me, her eyes filled with determination. In that instant, everything felt like it was unraveling. I knew I had to fight back, but how? The locket glimmered weakly in my hand, almost as if it were anticipating my next move. And then it hit me. I couldn't escape this alone. I felt desperation surge within me, but I quickly focused on Eliza. "We need to use the locket again. It led us here for a reason." My voice trembled, but I kept my grip on her hand. She nodded, her eyes wide with fear. "What if it doesn't work? What if it's just delaying the inevitable?" "It has to," I shouted back, trying to drown out the looming shadow that was tightening its hold on my ankle. "If we don't try, we have no chance at all." I could see Eliza wavering. I squeezed her hand harder. "On three. Okay? You can do this." My pulse drummed in my ears, and I knew we needed to act fast. "All right," she said, her voice shaky but resolute. "1, 2, 3. We pressed down on the locket together again. This time, the light exploded from the keyhole with a force that knocked us both backward. The tendril around my ankle released me, and I felt the powerful surge of energy pull me toward the door. As I landed on the ground, I caught a glimpse of the shadow screeching. As if it could sense the shift in power, we scrambled to our feet, unsteady but ready to seize the moment. The doorway shimmered invitingly, and determination replaced fear in my heart. "Come on," I shouted, urging Eliza forward. We rushed through the threshold. Crashing into the open space beyond, it was a vast hallway, lined with ancient portraits whose eyes seemed to follow us. Candles flickered on the walls, casting flickering shadows around us. I felt as if we had stepped into another world, yet the oppressive atmosphere reminded me we weren't safe. "What is this place?" Eliza whispered, looking around with wide eyes that I shook my head, scanning for any sign of escape. "I don't know, but we need to keep moving." I pulled her forward, passing by the eerie portraits that felt more alive than lifeless. Then, I spotted a glimmer at the end of the hallway. A grand staircase spiraled upwards, the wooden steps seeming to beckon us. "There," I pointed. "Maybe we can find help or a way out up there." Eliza hesitated. "But what about the shadow? Could be right behind us." Before I could respond, I heard it, a low rumble, like thunder rolling in the distance, reverberating through the hall. My heart dropped. It was gaining on us. "Run!" I yelled, taking off toward the stairs. Eliza followed closely, her footsteps echoing behind me. The rumble grew louder, transformed into a wrathful roar that sliced through the air, igniting a primal fear within me. When we reached the base of the stairs, I hesitated. The stairway spiraled up into darkness, and I could feel the shadow lurking behind us. "Come on," I urged, pulling her up the steps. Each footfall felt heavier, as if the shadows were reaching for my legs, trying to pull me back. As we reached the first landing, I paused to catch my breath. "What now?" Eliza gasped, looking around. The air grew thick with tension. I stared at the walls, searching for anything that resembled the locket-esque keyhole. My gaze landed on a door halfway down the landing. It was slightly ajar, and an inexplicable pull drew me toward it. "We'll check there. Maybe it leads to something useful." We approached cautiously, exchanging worried glances as the growl from below intensified. I pushed the door open slowly, ready for anything that might be waiting inside. When I saw it, an old, leather-bound book lying on a dusty wooden table. It seemed oddly familiar. As I reached for it, the door creaked ominously behind us, and the shadow surged closer. I opened the book, heart pounding. If it held the answers we needed, we could turn the tide. But as the pages fluttered to life, I realized the truth: it contained our story. The pages of the book turned themselves, revealing scenes from our past, the day we found the locket, our first argument, even the moment we decided to come to this cursed mansion. It felt like I was reading a twisted diary of our lives, every moment recorded in dark ink. I glanced up at Eliza, whose face had gone pale. "This isn't possible," she whispered, fear creeping into her voice. "It has to be," I murmured, trying to understand what it meant. The ink shimmered as if alive, drawing my gaze back to the book. I flipped ahead, desperate for answers. Each page held a new memory, but they seemed distorted, the details shifting. Suddenly, I saw something that made my breath catch. "Eliza, look." I pointed to a page depicting two figures standing in front of a grand doorway, the same doorway we had just escaped from. Beside them was a dark figure, lurking in the shadows. A chill raced down my spine. "What does it mean?" Eliza asked, leaning closer. I swallowed hard. "It's like it's telling us what's supposed to happen." Just then, a loud crash echoed from the stairwell, shaking the walls around us. I could feel the shadow thrumming with rage below. We didn't have much time. I flipped through the pages, frantically searching for anything that could help. Then, I stumbled upon a passage marked by an intricate drawing, a small, glowing locket similar to ours. Above it were the words, "The key to escape lies where the shadows dance." What does that even mean? Eliza cried, but before I could answer, another loud crash resonated from behind us. The door we had entered through rattled in its frame. I slammed the book shut, panic rising within me. We need to get out of here. Now. Eliza nodded, her determination igniting. Back to the staircase? No. The book said something about shadows. What if there's a clue here? I glanced around the room, taking in the faded furniture and the layers of dust that covered everything. The light from the candles flickered, casting strange shapes on the walls. I felt the air shift, and my gaze landed on the corner of the room. The shadows there seemed to sway differently, like they were alive. Over there, I whispered. We need to check it out. We moved cautiously toward the corner, my heart racing with each step. The shadowy figure from the book loomed large in my mind. I didn't dare look back, fearing what might be creeping up behind us. Eliza held her breath as we reached the wall. The shadows danced strangely, their movement almost hypnotic. What do we do? She asked, glancing nervously over her shoulder. Just trust me, I said, focusing on the shadows. I reached out, tentatively touching the wall where the shadows danced the most. To my astonishment, the wall felt oddly cool. Suddenly, the shadows compressed together as if responding to my touch. A faint glow appeared in front of us, revealing a tiny latch hidden in the wood. My heart raced with hope. Here, I shouted, yanking on it. The latch creaked as it turned, and I pushed against the wall hard. It gave way slowly but firmly, revealing another passage leading downward. Before I could think, I glanced back up the stairs. The shadow roared in fury, echoing throughout the hallway. Get in, I urged, shoving Eliza through the opening. I followed quickly, pressing my back against the wall as the shadows surged forward, seeking us out. The passageway closed behind us just as the roar crescendoed into a thunderous cry. I gasped for breath, the darkness closing in around us. Is this the way? Eliza whispered, her eyes wide. I shone a tiny flashlight I had in my pocket down the narrow tunnel. I don't know, but we have to keep going. As my light flickered, I noticed something else shimmering at the end of the passage. What is that? I asked, moving toward it with caution. Just then, a dreadful chill filled the air, sending shivers through my spine. Someone was watching us, and I could feel the weight of their gaze pressing down hard. We need to hurry, I whispered, the tension mounting as I edged closer to the shimmering light. The tunnel seemed to stretch infinitely, the oppressive darkness feeling alive around us. Each step led me further from the ominous howl of the shadow, but it was also a reminder of how close we were to being lost forever. Eliza clung tightly to my side, her breath quickening as the cold enveloped us. My flashlight flickered, casting odd shadows that danced along the walls. They felt like echoes of everything we had just faced. As we reached the end of the passage, the shimmering light grew brighter, forming a kind of doorway. Pulsated, inviting yet foreboding. I hesitated, the memories of the growl still fresh in my bones. Eliza caught my eye, her expression torn between fear and hope. Do you think it's a way out? She asked, her voice trembling. I don't know, but it has to be better than waiting for that thing, I replied, gesturing toward the dark corridor we just fled. With a deep breath, I pushed through the threshold. We emerged into a vast, open room, illuminated by a soft, ethereal glow. It was unlike any other room in the mansion. Its walls were adorned with delicate murals of serene landscapes that seemed alive, showing scenes of life instead of decay. I felt a wave of hope wash over me, but it quickly shifted to unease when I realized the murals seemed to pulse, as if breathing with each new flicker of light. Is this? I stammered, scanning the room. Is it real? Eliza stepped closer to one of the murals, mesmerized. As her fingers brushed against the painted surface, the scene shifted, revealing a memory: a sunny day, children playing in a garden. My heart sank as I understood. This was a manifestation of the house's history, the lives once lived here. But the beauty felt haunting rather than comforting. Suddenly, the shimmering began to fade. We need to move, I shouted, panic setting in. Before it's too late. Grabbing Eliza's wrist, I urged her towards a door at the far end of the room. But as we moved, each step felt weighed down by an unseen force. The shadows crept along the edges of the walls, twisting toward us once more. "Ethan, look," Eliza cried out, pointing to a small pedestal in the center of the room. There lay an ancient locket, glistening as if it held the very essence of light. The pulses of energy radiated from it, a stark contrast to the malevolent shadows creeping toward us. "Eliza, it's calling to us." The locket beckoned with undeniable allure. I could feel its warmth even from afar, igniting a flicker of hope in my chest. "What if it's a trap?" she whispered, uncertainty creeping into her voice. "I don't think we have a choice. We can't let the shadow catch us," I urged, adrenaline propelling me forward. We dashed toward the pedestal, the shadows howling behind us, clawing toward the last vestiges of light. I reached out, fingers trembling, and gently grasped the locket. It was warm, a pulse of energy thrumming with life as I lifted it from the pedestal. The room erupted into a blinding light. I instinctively shielded my eyes, clinging to Eliza's hand. The light enveloped us, and for a moment, I thought we were lost in the void of brilliance. But instead, it deepened, pulling us into a different reality. I opened my eyes to find ourselves standing in the garden I had seen painted on the walls. The sunlight filtered through the trees, casting vibrant colors across the green grass. It felt alive, untouched by darkness. We were free, but a knot formed in my stomach. "Ethan?" Eliza's voice sounded distant, though she stood right beside me. "Is it really over?" The old mansion loomed just beyond the garden, its shadow stretching ominously toward us. I felt the heaviness return. "I don't know," I admitted, looking back at the mansion. The echoes of the past lingered, torn between the beauty of the garden and the nightmares we had escaped. Somewhere behind us, a whisper drifted through the air, disembodied and haunting. "You can't escape your past," it seemed to say, and I felt a chill ripple down my spine. "We did it," I said, more to convince myself than anything. "We're outside. We're safe." But as I held the locket tightly, its warmth pooling in my palm, a question gnawed at me. Would it always be a part of me? Was the lineage of despair merely hidden, waiting for its moment to resurrect? The garden felt like a facade, hiding the truth beneath its surface. I looked at Eliza, who met my gaze with a mix of determination and uncertainty. "No matter what happens," I promised, "I'll keep you safe." As we began to tread away from the mansion, an unsettling feeling settled in my gut. I couldn't shake the sensation that while the door might have closed behind us, the shadows were merely lurking, waiting in the periphery, patient and relentless in the distance. I heard the music again, a haunting melody that lingered like a forgotten memory. It tugged at my heart, and as much as I wanted to ignore it, a part of me knew that this battle wasn't truly over. Something had changed, but the connection to the past remained, unbroken and unyielding.